On a clear and breezy Saturday afternoon, the bustling Oakwood shopping center was alive with laughter and chatter. Families wandered from store to store, couples enjoyed hot pretzels, and children eagerly tugged at their parents' hands, incessantly asking to visit the toy store. Amid the crowd, a man in his 50s quietly wheeled himself into the food court. He was unremarkable, dressed simply in a jacket and jeans, with a bright red MAGA hat perched on his head. This man, Robert Sinclair, was a successful entrepreneur and the true owner of the sprawling shopping complex. Robert had built his empire from the ground up, overcoming personal and professional obstacles that many could not bear. Today, he was not here as the polished CEO but simply as a customer wanting to observe the staff and the operations of his center. When Robert reached the fast food counter, he ordered a burger and fries, handing over a crisp $20 bill. He chose a quiet corner table by a large window overlooking the parking lot, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere amidst the crowd's bustle. As he ate, he noticed a group of teenagers pointing and whispering about him. Robert was used to this attention, both positive and negative, but the hat was merely a symbol of his beliefs, not a weapon to provoke. Not far away, Sarah Turner, the mall manager, was prowling the food court with determination. Dressed sharply in a tailored blazer, she exuded authority, her keen eyes scanning the area for anyone not fitting her ideal of acceptable clientele. "Do you see that man?" Sarah whispered to a young employee beside her. "The one in the wheelchair by the window." "Yes, ma'am," the employee replied hesitantly. "That hat. I've told everyone that kind of political nonsense isn't welcome here. We need to uphold our image." "But he's not causing any trouble," the junior employee ventured timidly. Sarah didn't listen, her anger simmering. "It's not about trouble, it's about image. We don't need complaints. I'll handle it." She squared her shoulders, adjusted her blazer, and strode purposefully toward Robert's table, her heels clicking loudly on the tile floor, drawing the attention of nearby diners. "Excuse me, sir," Sarah said, her voice icy but polite enough to veil her disdain. "I'm Sarah Turner, the manager of this mall. I need to ask you to remove your hat or leave the premises." Robert looked up, surprise mixed with curiosity evident on his face. "May I ask why?" "We've received complaints about your hat. It's a political statement that some of our customers find offensive." "This is a family-friendly establishment," Sarah replied firmly. Robert chuckled softly, setting down his burger. "I see. Is there a policy that says wearing a hat is grounds for removal?" Her smile tightened. "As the manager, I have the discretion to maintain a peaceful and welcoming environment. I understand your concern, but I'm just here to enjoy my meal. I'm not disturbing anyone. If someone is uncomfortable because of my hat, that's their issue, not mine. Sir, I'm not going to argue with you. You can either comply or leave. Security will be here shortly if necessary," Sarah said, her patience wearing thin. As a small crowd began to gather, some diners whispered among themselves, clearly uncomfortable with Sarah's approach. A teenage girl pulled out her phone, recording the encounter. "Why can't he wear a hat? This is America, isn't it?" a middle-aged man murmured. Robert glanced at the onlookers, then back at Sarah. "You're making a spectacle out of nothing," he said evenly. "Do you really think this is the right way to handle the situation?" Just then, two burly security guards arrived, summoned by Sarah's earlier call. "Sir, you need to come with us," one of them said, his tone firm but not aggressive. Robert sighed and took a final bite of his burger. "Fine, but you might want to think about how this looks to everyone watching." As the guards escorted him toward the exit, the teenager with the phone discreetly followed, still recording. Sarah exhaled sharply, brushing imaginary dust off her blazer. "Some people just don't get it," she muttered to herself as she turned to head back to her office, unaware that the teenager was uploading the video to social media with the title, "Disabled Man Kicked Out of Mall for Wearing MAGA Hat." Robert left the mall quietly, but a faint smile lingered on his face. Sarah had no idea that her moment of authority was about to set off a chain of events she couldn't control, because the man she had just humiliated wasn't just any patron, he was the very person who signed her paychecks. Returning to her office with a sense of accomplishment, Sarah felt she had done her duty to protect the mall's family-friendly environment. She sat at her desk, shuffling papers, mentally moving on, yet the uneasy glances she received from some of her staff lingered in her mind. Still, Sarah brushed it off as part of the job. Leadership wasn't about being liked, it was about making tough decisions. Meanwhile, across town, Robert settled into his home office, sipping a cup of tea as his phone buzzed incessantly. Notifications from social media apps, emails from concerned friends, and even a text from his PR manager began pouring in. "Jacob, this is blowing up. You need to see the video," read a text. Robert clicked on the link provided and leaned back as he watched the grainy footage of his encounter with Sarah. The teen had recorded everything, the calm way he responded, Sarah's escalating hostility, and the security guards escorting him out. The caption read, "This is what happens when prejudice meets ignorance. Disabled man kicked out of a mall for wearing a MAGA hat." The comments were a firestorm, unbelievable. "People need to learn respect, this guy is my hero for staying so calm, and who's the manager? She should be fired." Robert smirked, clearly some viewers had recognized him. This wasn't just a social media moment, it was a full-blown PR crisis for his mall. But instead of anger, Robert felt something else, curiosity. How would Sarah handle herself if she knew who he really was? By the next morning, the video had reached over 1 million views, and local news stations began picking up the story. Sarah, however, was blissfully unaware. She started her day as usual, walking through the mall to ensure everything was in order. She greeted a few employees curtly, issued instructions to tighten up displays, and made a mental note to follow up on the new seasonal decorations. It wasn't until mid-morning when she noticed an unusual number of people loitering near the food court with their phones out that she started to suspect something was off. A young employee approached her nervously, holding a tablet. Miss Turner, have you seen this?" he asked, hesitating as he held the screen toward her. Sarah frowned and snatched the tablet. Her heart sank as she saw the now viral video, her face was unmistakable. The footage captured her confrontation with Robert in excruciating detail. "Where did this come from?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Social media. It's everywhere now," the employee replied, stepping back as if bracing for a storm. "A lot of people are upset." Sarah's mind raced. This could ruin her. She needed to act quickly to contain the fallout. "Get PR on the phone," she barked. "We need a statement now." As Sarah scrambled to salvage her reputation, Robert was already en route to the mall, dressed sharply in a tailored suit. He no longer looked like the quiet man in a wheelchair she had dismissed the day before. Today he carried an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. When he arrived at the mall, employees and customers alike did double takes. Word of his identity had spread like wildfire, and staff whispered among themselves, unsure of what was about to happen. Robert moved through the mall with purpose, heading straight for Sarah's office. He knocked twice before pushing the door open. Sarah looked up from her desk, her face pale as she registered who stood before her. What are you doing here?" she stammered, struggling to find words. Robert rolled forward and stopped in the center of the room, his gaze steady. "Good morning, Miss Turner. I believe we need to talk." Sarah swallowed hard. "I can explain. Yesterday was a misunderstanding." Robert held up a hand, silencing her. "No need to explain just yet. I've seen the video. I've read the comments. But what I really want to know is this: do you believe the way you handled that situation was appropriate?" Sarah's throat tightened. "I was trying to maintain order. We've had complaints. Robert interrupted, his tone calm but firm. Or personal bias? Let's not sugarcoat this, Miss Turner. You saw a man in a MAGA hat and decided he didn't belong in your mall. Sarah's defenses began to crumble. I was thinking of the mall's reputation.